It's the night before Windows 10, Motorola has style, and Mark Watney should have spent some time in Hawaii. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 390 for Tuesday, July 28th, 2015. This episode of Tech News Tonight is brought to you by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one simple integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay, period. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to braintreepayments.com/technight. Welcome, I am Megan Maroney. Let's get to today's big tech news. It was the night before Windows 10 and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, except for all of us who are digging out our old Windows 7 PCs to see if they're eligible for a free upgrade. That's right, cheesy attempts at poetry aside, tomorrow is the day that Windows will begin upgrading eligible computers to their newest operating system, Windows 10. Joining us to talk about some of the best features is Mark Hackman, Senior Editor at PC World. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. So in your review of Windows 10, you point out that for the first time, this version of Windows is really mutable. You write, we may as well refer to Windows 10 as a date or an hour as much as an operating system. It's a moment in time. A month from now, it will have changed, evolved, and improved. You're much better at Windows poetry than I am. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, the days of buying a packaged piece of software is sort of over. Microsoft's been upgrading Windows since Windows 8, and when the customer response to that was fairly apocalyptic, people sort of shied away from it in droves. Microsoft basically just took an approach where they said, all right, look, what don't you like about it? Tell us, we'll fix it. And so that sort of Windows 8 sort of evolved into Windows 8.1, which was a free upgrade. And for most people, for Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 users, Windows 10 will be a free upgrade as well. There's been obviously build after build after build of insider previews being pushed to millions of people who have helped beta test this software. Those insider previews will continue after Windows 10 is formally released tomorrow. But even now, when supposedly the code's been frozen, there's been security patch after security patch after bug fix after bug fix. There's just going to be just continuous updates and feature improvements as we go on.
So it seems like Microsoft has a history of getting it right every other OS. XP was better than Windows Me, and Windows 7 is better than Windows Vista. So it's natural to expect that Windows 10 will be a huge improvement over Windows 8. But is there something different going on this time with Microsoft?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily natural to believe that every other release is going to be better than the one before, but that's certainly the way it seems to have worked out this time. I do think that with Windows 10, we are just seeing a different, we're seeing the game changed. We're just not seeing fixed releases. We're just going to see, continuous bug fixes. I mean, as I wrote the review, and I've noticed that in the review as well, I noted things that improved from my rough draft to my final draft. And even that draft was published last week. We're going to revisit that tomorrow, and I expect things will change again. It's just, like I said before, a continuous process of improvement. And I think it's to Microsoft's credit that they're doing this.
Yeah, I think it really is the Satya mania everyone's talking about. I mean, everything is really different. So let's start with the Edge browser. It's rumored to be pretty great, but you say it's not fully baked. What are your complaints about Edge right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's technically not done. They have support for extensions, which they're planning on adding, but that's going to come in the fall. There's a number of features which are both good and bad about it. I mean, if you're using it as an ordinary browser, if you're opening 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 windows, I honestly think it's fine. It works very well. Some of the features like Cortana, for example, are excellent. Other features, I think some of the web notes are sort of overhyped. But in general, when Edge works pretty well. I think where it gets into trouble, though, is when people start opening a number of tabs, especially tabs that are, well, pretty multimedia heavy. I mean, CNN.com, PCWorld.com, PCMag.com, CNET.com. All of these websites use a lot of advertisements, a lot of trackers, a lot of cruft and so forth. And when you start stringing those all together in multiple tabs, that, in my experience, is where Edge has fallen down.
So
I do expect that to get better, but for right now, it's where it's at.
So it just crashes with that many tabs, multi-many tabs?
Crashed for me. Like I said, I'm going to sort of revisit it when we get some additional code tomorrow, and hopefully that'll change.
So with Cortana, I mean, have you gotten used to talking to your computer? Does it still feel a little weird?
At home, actually, I have gotten used to it. For someone who's used Cortana both on a Windows Phone or Google Now on an Android phone or so forth, I've gotten used to sort of, holding my phone up and sort of mumbling into it, hey, remind me to buy Megs, or remind me to go get milk or something of that sort. And I think that at home, when I'm down in my office and, it's just the cat, basically, I don't have any problem doing that. If I'm in my office at work and, I'm saying, well, I better, remind me to check out, some annoying or personal medical problem, I'm not going to do that. But in general, some of the features of Cortana that I really enjoy are just, the ability to basically just multitask. I mean, you can literally compose an email while you're surfing the web and just do it orally. And when it works very well. And I think it's sort of, we're on the cusp of something new and different. And I really appreciate what's going on here.
Now, in your testing, has Cortana drained the battery more quickly?
Well, a couple of OEMs have warned that it's possible. I mean, you'll notice that if you use your phone, for example, and you use Google Now, and you have it sort of, hey, Google, or OK Google set up, or hey Cortana set up in your Windows Phone, your battery life will drain a little bit more. Laptop is obviously a little bit bigger. The effects are going to be a little bit different. I mean, the big battery drainer on your laptop is actually your display. So I think that you're going to notice a little bit of a battery life decrease, but not too much. And honestly, in my testing, when Cortana has been on, it's been on for a fairly a few seconds, and even then hasn't really taken up too much of my CPU resources. So I would say that there's going to be a hit on battery life, but I think it's probably going to be very small.
Yeah, and as you said, we're not going to be talking to our PCs in the middle of the office or on the bus or in the plane. We're going to probably be using it when we're at home alone with the cat and a plug.
Exactly.
So how difficult is it to do the simple things with Edge, like importing bookmarks from IE or Chrome?
I really don't think it's that difficult. There's an import bookmark function. It takes a little bit of fiddling. Internet Explorer, there's some quirks. Chrome, there's some quirks. I think that most people will sort of be able to import their bookmarks okay. Some of their folders and organization may not be preserved, but I think a little tweaking, everything should come out pretty fine. The one thing that is a bit annoying is for example, I use a couple of passwords which I have saved in Chrome, and when I imported them into Edge, I had to. Those passwords didn't come along with it, and I had to sort of go, oh gosh, what were those, and dig those out and put those back in again, and that's where it gets a little bit annoying.
And you mentioned also that Edge doesn't support browser extensions yet, so if you're used to using something like LastPassword to store all your passwords, you're not going to be able to use it as a browser extension yet. Yeah,
it'll store it. If you put in a password, it'll store it, and most browsers will do that. But if you have a password manager extension, so far that's not supported. That'll come in the future.
So why not? Are they just working on making it more secure, or browser extensions, things that make the browser unstable?
That's a good question. I think the original plan, was for Windows 10 to come out in October, and I think that I've seen some chatter to the point where the Surface. The Surface folks, for example, were kind of a little bit unsurprised, and I think maybe that's true for Edge as well. There's a development cycle, and they're just simply not there.
So let's move on to the Windows 10 Store. Last week, Microsoft announced that they would begin selling a number of quality games on the Windows Store over time. Did they mention specific games they'd be selling?
They did. Gears of War, their Minecraft version, the sequel to Tomb Raider, Cuphead, which is sort of this really interesting indie game. It's sort of based upon, I think, 1930s cartoon art. These are all coming to the Windows Store over time. It's not quite clear when that's going to happen, but obviously it'll probably be tied to the release date and so forth. I mean, if you look at the Windows Store today, it just really is, for better or for worse, there's a lot of crapware in there. Not games that are a malware per se, but just casual games that appeal to a certain segment of the population, but not sort of the more mainstream PC gamer that I think Microsoft hopes to attract. And some of these games that Microsoft will be putting on the store hopefully we'll get get that back in gear. I mean, the Windows Store is not and perhaps will never be the quality of a Steam or a good old gamer or something of that sort. But I think we'd all like to see them at least try to make that happen.
So now in Windows 10, you'll be able to stream Xbox games to Windows 10. That's the first time you'll be able to do that. Is there any, have you heard any rumors about maybe just combining the Xbox Store and the Windows 10 Store? Why can't they just be one place?
That's a great question. I honestly don't know why. I think that, I think that possibly they certainly could do that. I mean, part of the reason is that for a long time anyways, the Xbox environment sort of existed as its own entity. People had their own gamer names, their own gamer scores, and so forth. And PC gamers I don't think they necessarily wanted to be part of that, and they just weren't. So they're going to have to sort of reconcile that. They've done that. They've taken a few steps already by basically saying, hey, look, if you want your real name to be associated with your gamer tag, that's fine. You don't actually have to have that. It's certainly possible that we'll see a sort of a combination store in the future, but I think we're a ways away from that.
So last week you wrote a piece about Intel that they're working on a patch for a minor bug that will reduce the battery life of some Windows 10 machines by less than 10%. Have you heard if there's a fix for that yet?
I haven't. We've seen a couple of firmware updates yet, but Microsoft and Intel have been very cagey about what those things have fixed. It's without any sort of intensive testing, it would be difficult to tell exactly what's been fixed or not. I tend to believe, just knowing Intel's, track record and Microsoft too, that if it's not passed already, it'll be fixed in a week or two.
So they say that the battery life on Windows 10 is going to be nearly the same as Windows 8.1 once the final Windows 10 drivers have been updated and released. What does that mean, final drivers, if they're talking about it as a system and being updated all the time?
It's a good question, actually. I think what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the final drivers, especially from Intel, especially the big names, and Intel, Broadcom, and those guys. We're seeing those drivers being finalized and released. I would expect that we're going to see working drivers for pretty much out. It's always difficult to sort of predict, who's going to have driver support and so forth. But I would expect, your bigger names are going to have those driver support, those drivers in place by the time Windows 10 drops tomorrow. Fully optimized drivers are going to take some time. They always do. So I would expect over the next few weeks and months that we'll see continued drivers, dropping and performance improving over time.
Oh, we talked about this a little bit last night on the show, but it's not going to come out immediately to everyone. The Windows insiders are going to get Windows 10 first, and then they're going to be grouped and roll out slowly. You say that sources have begun to report that July 29th, tomorrow, could bring with it potential enormous day zero software update in conjunction with Windows 10, both via Windows Update as well as individual Microsoft apps updated via the Windows Store. What does this mean exactly?
Well, I mean, logically speaking, we've seen, like I said, we've seen a code freeze, and Microsoft has been presumably busy updating this and that and the other in the interim. We haven't seen any sort of updates or build updates since then. I would expect, and from what I've seen and what I've heard is that we should be seeing something on the order of at least a gigabyte coming down tomorrow. Whether that happens or not, I'm not sure. Part of that, of course, is our people on Twitter claiming this. But I would say that we should probably expect a fairly major patch update at this point. And probably, maybe even a couple of additional ones going forward.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking about this before the show that, people are going to be wanting to stream Netflix movies and do all kinds of things using their bandwidth. Like we all have 4 or 5 PCs if we have families. So are people going to be just surprised at how much bandwidth this is absorbing when they suddenly get their update, not knowing when?
I really don't know, actually. I'd be interested to see. I mean, you're right. We talked a little bit about the show. I've got a few PCs sitting here in the office. I was really debating whether to go ahead and just see if I can push the updates here at the office. We have seen some preload. I mean, there's Microsoft, I believe, has confirmed that there are some preloads of software going out. So if you've had your PC on and patched and up to date, it's very possible that you have essentially Windows 10 pushed and locked in the depths of your PC, and it'll be unlocked tonight at midnight. It's also possible that we'll see some people not getting Windows 10 until they have all the pieces in place. One of those things has to do with drivers. If you don't have a particular driver that's going to support Windows 10, Windows 10 will not be pushed to you. So, but in general, yeah, I would expect that if you have a few PCs, you could have a fairly heavy download tax or penalty or whatever you want to call it in the next couple of days.
So in your testing so far, what's your favorite new feature of Windows 10?
Hello, actually. Windows Hello is a feature where you basically sit down at your PC and it basically sees you like this camera is seeing me now. It's looking at my face and saying, okay, that's Mark. I'm going to let him in. And we had a hands-on today where we had a Lenovo 15. And it literally takes just a few seconds. You sit down, you train it, you let it take a picture of you like the camera's taking a picture of me now. You sit down and boom, you're in. The problem is, of course, that it doesn't work for older hardware because it requires a special depth camera. The RealSense camera from Intel is being built into just a handful of new PCs. And it'll be obviously added to more over time. But yeah, I think it's like the keyless entry or the remote start or some of the features that you have in these modern cars where you simply walk up to the car and it just recognizes you and is ready to go. I personally don't like passwords. I don't think anyone does. And hopefully Hello is maybe the first step in eliminating them in the future.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. Mark Hackman is the senior editor at PC World at Mark Hackman. That's Hachman, not the kind of hacking Hackman. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Coming up, when is the best time to go to the DMV? And is Twitter too hard to use? But first, this episode is brought to you by Braintree, code for easy online payments. Are you a mobile app developer? Do you want to be? If you've ever wanted to know how apps like Uber or Airbnb make it easy to use their app to pay, then have a look at Braintree. Braintree offers excellent customer service, simple integration so you can get ready to receive payments quickly. And Braintree's continuous support plus fast payouts means you'll be prepared as your business grows. Braintree gives you a full stack payment solution, support for all payment types your customers might want. So start accepting PayPal, Apple Pay, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and more, all with a single integration across all platforms with superior fraud protection, customer service, and fast payouts. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to braintreepayments.com/technight. Now on to a few more stories we're following. Today, Motorola unveiled the Moto X Style, the Moto X Play, and the newly revamped Moto G. The phones are colorful and customizable, and they boast updated cameras and displays. They also promise to be bloatware-free. The unlocked Moto X that you can use with any carrier is only $180, $220 if you want the Moto Maker version. Florence Ion over at Greenbot has full descriptions and comparisons of all three phones. Twitter posted second quarter earnings today. Revenue is up, but user growth is still disappointing. Time.com says that Twitter's full earnings presentation revealed that the number of new American monthly active Twitter users has been gradually getting smaller for a while now and flatlined this quarter. That's right. The quarterly average for monthly U.S. active users was 66 million last quarter and 66 million this quarter. Chief Financial Officer Anthony Noto admitted that Twitter will only see growth when it becomes mainstream. And right now, quote, the product remains too difficult to use, end quote. For the record, my 12-year-old daughter is on Twitter. I do not think it's too difficult to use. Maybe some people just don't want to use it. Google announced a new feature today that will allow you to avoid crowds. Google search results for a popular business will now show you historical data on the busiest and quietest times to visit a business, broken down hour by days of the week. It's a helpful feature. Thank you, Google. The blog entry, however, neglected to mention where this data comes from. VentureBeat contacted Google, who said they get this information from the same place they get traffic information. Location tracking turned on your phone. Anonymized, of course. Speaking of location tracking, what if you could wear Google Glass around your neck? Would it be a little less creepy? Toyota thinks so. Declassified.com, that's a site dedicated to reading the tea leaves of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, says that Toyota is developing a smart necklace that could act as your personal urban navigator. The imagined necklace would contain depth-sensing cameras and advanced object recognition, featuring 2 cameras on each end with a wide binocular field of view to resemble the human eye. Declassified says this smart necklace might not only help you find your way around a new city, but it could help you find your way around a mall to buy more stuff or to help you pick out a face from a crowded airport. And finally, if you've read The Martian by Andy Weir, then Mars is probably not number 1 on your vacation top 10 list. It's probably not even number 10, unless you really like potatoes. But how about a fake Mars built near the top of a Hawaiian volcano? The new news site Tech Insider reports that a team just finished an 8-month stay inside the dome on fake Mars. They also recently hosted a group of local high school girls for a night on Mars, part of a STEM education program, and they invited the Tech Insider reporter along. The volcano is a barren landscape that looks a lot like Mars. It features a habitat, also called the Hab, and a lava tube for an emergency solar flare drill, to protect yourself from all the space radiation. Check out the full story on Tech Insider. And that's it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We are on Facebook. You can find us by searching Facebook for Tech News Tonight. Don't forget to use the number 2. You can like us to get links to the show when it's posted and the stories we talk about. And if you want to be part of the conversation, post a comment on the stories that we post. We'll read the best ones right here. And you can also send an email to tn2@twit.tv or to megan@twit.tv. That's how John Hancock from Adelaide, Australia sent me this comment. John says, I watched with interest your interview on TN2 387 with Jim Dalrymple. His frustration with Apple Music reminds me of my annoyance with the Podcasts app. Although the list of bugs is different, it is equally frustrating and equally long list. I would expect such a high-profile app to be quite stable, but alas, it requires constant maintenance to try to work around these and other bugs. Agreed, John. I suggest you try Instacast. Our technical director, Anthony, also swears by Downcast. You can also subscribe to the show using either of those podcast apps or at twit.tv/TN2. And if you're available at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, you can watch live every weekday to see how often I mess up. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today, every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I am Megan Maroney. Thanks to our producer, Jason Cleanthes, our technical director, Anthony Nielsen, and our prompter operator, Greg Burnett. And thank you for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.